zip up your members-only jacket, crack open a tab, and pause your Walkman as we bring you to the 1980s.
This is the 80s Show podcast, where we talk about all things 1980s, from movies to TV shows, music and stars, fads and fashions. We'll talk about anything and everything to do with the 1980s.
The 1980s, the best decade in decades.
All right, so we are your hosts alongside Damian Raffelli. My name is Bill Lassiter. Welcome to the 80s Show podcast. We've got a pretty great show for you today. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter. No, X now, Damian, right? X and Facebook and Insta and all the things, right, Damian?
But no TikTok. That's for Gen Z, man.
Yeah, we don't do TikTok. Although I think you're a pretty good dancer. We could do some TikTok dances later on. Maybe for season 3.
Yeah, I am Damien, the disco dancer. I was just listening to the episode where we covered The Greatest American Hero, and we were talking about the disco dancer.
Oh, yeah.
The famous mobster, Tony the Disco Dancer.
Tony the Disco Dancer. All right, so anyway, Damien, what do we got going on today for our episode?
Well, today we're going to be talking about Bill and Ted Face the Music.
All right, so it's a kind of a callback from season 1, episode 1, where we teased the sequel. What's the third movie? It's not a sequel. Would it be a threequel?
That's a good question. I don't know.
So the second sequel of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure we're going to talk about today. We're also going to talk about, since last episode we talked about the top 5 sitcom dads. It's only fair. We talk about the top 5 sitcom moms, right, Damien?
That's right. We're going to find the most badass sitcom moms out there.
That's right. And we're going to finish up talking about 80s toys, the old famous Texas Instruments Speak and Spell. I'm excited about that.
I'm looking forward to that, too.
All right, so we do have some 1980s items in the news, Damien. You want to talk about that for a second?
Yeah, so first we got our G Money. We got a good cash grab, 2 G movies that are going to be remade. So Goonies and Gremlins are getting sequels. But the exciting news, it was announced by Warner Brothers that Steven Spielberg is going to be producing the Goonies sequel. And Christopher Columbus, the original scriptwriter, is going to be one of the producers as well.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. I'm wondering what they're going to do with it. Same stars as before. Obviously Sean Astin and Josh Brolin, all those guys. That should be exciting. They said the anticipated release will be either 2026 or 2027. So it's right around the corner, Damien.
Yeah, it's coming up pretty fast. Before you know, we'll be covering it on a segment for this show. And I have seen some of the original cast members talking about the sequel, and they're excited. None of them are either sure or they're not allowed to say if they're going to be in the third sequel, the upcoming sequel.
They got those NDAs. They're not going to say. They don't want to ruin the franchise. They don't want to ruin any surprises or whatever. The other exciting news with the G Money segment is Gremlins is going to get. Actually, would be the third Gremlins movie. Christopher Columbus, who wrote the script, he's going to write this one as well, which is pretty great.
Yeah, I'm excited about that too. And this was actually the original Gremlins was Christopher Columbus's first big script that he wrote, and he did a lot of stuff for the 80s.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
And Steven Spielberg optioned that, so it's exciting that he's involved in both of these movies as well.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And just for our listeners' sake, this is not the Christopher Columbus that quote unquote discovered America in 1492, right?
I'm not sure. I have to fact check that. I'm not positive about that. Okay. I'll Google that one.
We'll check that out for everybody. So the other exciting news is coming up really soon is there's going to be a new Karate Kid movie, Karate Kid Legends. And this stars both Ralph Macchio and Jackie Chan. And it's going to hit theaters on May 30th. Looking forward for that too, right, Damien?
Yeah. When I first heard about it, I wasn't super excited about it. But because Ralph Macchio is going to be involved, and it seems like it's going to be now a direct extension from Cobra Kai.
Oh, cool.
And, of course, in our last episode, we talked about the Karate Kid, original Karate Kid movie, and a little bit about the Cobra Kai TV show. So I'm excited about this. I did watch the trailer because I was a little confused because, Jackie Chan is Chinese and karate is Japanese.
Wait, what?
Yeah, it's a different country, believe it or not.
All right, wow.
China and Japan are different countries. But they acknowledge that he's Chinese, and they're integrating Kung Fu into this martial arts world. So I think it's going to be interesting. I'm a big fan of Jackie Chan. I mean, I'd like to see, him. I'm not sure if he's actually playing the Mr. Miyagi type character or what his role is going to be, but it looks pretty interesting.
Yeah, so I also know that Ralph Macchio really he protects the Daniel character. Like I know he was very particular about what he could and couldn't do for Cobra Kai, just because he just loves the character so much. I mean, it's basically an extension of himself, really, if you think about it. I mean, it's his most famous role anyway. So he's very protective of that. Also, we saw that there's going to be a Naked Gun reboot.
And you know what? That one actually looks pretty good. It's going to be interesting because the Zucker brothers, who produced the original Naked Gun and Airplane and those movies, they're not involved and they weren't even consulted on it. So,
is that right?
Yeah, there could be some bad blood there. But I did like the trailer. Liam Neeson.
Yeah. I think it'd be funny to see Liam Neeson in more of a comedic role. Leslie Nielsen was perfect in that role as a deadpan. Everything was so deadpan in that movie, and well, all three of those movies actually.
But Leslie Nielsen was a serious actor like Liam Neeson was. So before he started doing like Airplane, I think was his first slapstick comedy.
Gotcha.
So I think he's Liam Neeson has the chops. He did a cameo, and I think it was Ted 2, and it was hilarious.
That's
the trick cereal.
That's right.
And it was funny.
Grocery store. Yeah.
So I think that actually I'm looking forward to this. I think it's going to be a good reboot.
All right. And of course, Damien, people make mistakes, right? So we do have some errors and omissions from previous episodes that we just want to clear the air on. We've got dozens of listener emails to correct us on these things, right, Damien?
Yeah, there was at least 10.
Okay.
10, yeah, for sure.
So we're in 10. So first of all, Pat Morita was 52 years old when Karate Kid was filmed.
Which is still insane because I'm almost 52 years old, and that's insane because he did look like he was in his 60s.
I mean, you guys are twins, man. Like, it just... just kidding. We also, unfortunately, we said it was the Tri-Valley tournament, and it was not the Tri-Valley tournament. It's the...
All Valley tournament.
Yeah, so not just three valleys, all the valleys, right?
Yeah, and that's embarrassing. We know better than that. It was just a brain fart there.
Also, we found out that Conrad Bain, who plays the father in Different Strokes, was actually 55 when that show was produced. He was born in 1923. 1923.
It's just not too far after World War I, which is insane.
That's pretty good. So anyway, we hope that you can forgive us for those errors and omissions from before. But hey, Damien, we've got a very exciting news here on the 80 Show podcast. We have a brand new sponsor, the Commodore 64.
Commodore, a computer for the creative mind.
I adore my 64, my Commodore 64. I sing with it, write with it, figure my path of flight with it, my Commodore 64. I rake with it, create with it, telecommunicate with it, my Commodore 64.
Now, for under $250, you can buy a Commodore 64. For complete details, see your authorized Commodore dealer.
I adore my 64, my Commodore 64.
All right, Damien. So our first segment today is going to be about Bill and Ted Face the Music, which is as you said, a true sequel to the first two Bill and Ted's movies, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It picks up right from, well, in the future, but picks up from where Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey left off.
Right. So just a couple quick facts about this. This was released on August 28, 2020, right during the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. The budget was $25 million, and it made a total of $6 million. So that's not great, right?
Yeah, and it was number 60, but, again, we had to take into account the COVID pandemic, and this was a direct to, I don't even think it was in the theaters.
No,
really.
Well, I'm not sure people were going to theaters at that point. So yeah, crazy thing is the critics loved this movie. It had an 82% rating on Rotten Tomatoes by the critics, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, and we bought this during. If you remember, we bought this during the pandemic, and we both watched it. We did a watch party, from our respective homes, and the actual revenue wasn't actually released by Forbes. Actually put out an article about that, so we don't really know how much it made. So you can't judge this movie or COVID movies by how much they made.
Absolutely. I mean, we for sure would have gone to the theater to see it if it had been released in the theaters.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
So, and you can still stream it right now. It's on Roku, Pluto TV, MGM Plus, Fubo, right? Yeah, so it's on all those. And of course, it stars the original cast, Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter, and George Carlin. Oh,
yeah, no, it was George Carlin's daughter in this one.
Okay,
which was another actress.
Okay.
Yeah, he did not come back from the grave. They did not do. Thank God they didn't do an AI, hologram of him or anything like that.
That would have been bad. That would have been bad. So, and it was written by we mentioned this in our first episode of the 80 Show podcast. It was written by the original writers of the franchise, Chris Matheson and Ed Solomon. So, it was, basically a continuation of the same story. But let's talk about where we left off on the other from the other two movies. So, let's talk about Excellent Adventure first.
This really does take us back to our first podcast episode, Bill and Damien's Excellent Podcast Adventure.
There you go.
And we teased that Bill and Ted Face the Music, Bill and Ted 3 at the time, was going to be made. And then we talked a little bit about Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. So I won't go too deep into Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, but let's just recap because it does, the first two movies do tie into the third movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of my favorite movies of all time, obviously. It was released in 89, so hey, 80 Show podcast, we can still get that. We can still call it. And it grossed like $40 million, Damien, at the box office, which is great.
Yeah, it did really well, and it was one of those classic cult movies. And I went back and just recently, the other week, rewatched all three of them again, just because I wanted to. And I watched them in order just to see what it was like. And one of the funny things I remembered is that Ted's dad looks exactly like one of my stepdads from the 1980s. I mean, it was a spitting image. It was almost scary. It kind of freaked me out.
My favorite part about that statement was Damien was one of my stepdads. And you were also telling me some of the things like the time travel stuff has no logic. There's like this movie didn't even need to be made.
No, it's a pointless movie, really. I mean, you have some movies like the 80s that did time travel, and people argue about that time travel logic doesn't make sense, but they were well done from a time travel perspective, like the Back to the Future,
sure,
Terminator movies.
Right,
they made sense for the most part. This makes zero sense, right? There's no logic with the time travel. I mean, first of all, why did Rufus? I might actually call him Doofus from now on.
Wow.
I think Rufus is the villain of the whole series on this, right?
Okay.
Why did he even go back in time in the first place?
Yeah, so, I mean, part of it is the world is at peace in the future. Everything's great. So why go back, right? That's the whole point, right?
Because Bill and Ted's music, Wild Stallions, united the world and made peace because of their music. Yeah, everything was perfect. So I think it was just time travel tourism. He wanted to go and meet the founders of their future community and civilization. There was zero stakes, really. I mean, you look at Terminator. They go back. Somebody goes back from the future to the past to try and change the future, right?
Right.
The AI sends them back. You look at Back to the Future. He accidentally goes back to the past in the first one, and the other ones, Biff goes back to try and change the past. So there's stakes there, right?
Right.
In like Back to the Future, he maybe he's not going to be born. Alex Keaton's character is not going to even be born.
Alex Keaton.
Yeah, say
Michael J. Fox.
Wow.
Hey, I mix them up too, man. It's fine. So Doofus, as you call him, Rufus is a great name, by the way. And I love George Carlin. So
absolutely
no hate on
George
Carlin.
It's not his fault. This is the character was written for him. He did an amazing job. I wish he was still alive for the third one.
Yeah.
But Rufus comes back from the far future, and he gives two absolute morons a time machine, and just says, "Hey, go for it." Here's a phone book time
morons. Machine. What? Like, okay, all right, keep going.
So they use this for their history project for school.
Sure, yeah.
But again, in the future, their history project must have been okay because it didn't have any consequences for the future. So why does he even come back and give him this time machine other than to just try? Maybe Rufus wanted to look like a badass in the future and say, "Hey, I met Bill and Ted, who are we worship basically."
Damien, I think we're thinking I think you're thinking way too deep about this great movie, but that's fine. That's fine. I get it. And we know, so like for people who are listening, Dude, Where's My Car? And actually Wayne's World were actually inspired or maybe even a ripoff of Bill and Ted's, right?
I will say at least Dude, Where's My Car was a complete ripoff of
Yeah. Well, Wayne's World, you got two dudes who just live in the basement, not really doing much, and they want to be rock stars, and same thing. It's the same thing, right?
And I did love, and I still love Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. It's a great movie. So don't get me wrong, but when I rewatched it and just looking at it differently, I'm actually laughing because it's insane. I mean, they go back in history and they kidnap historical figures. Totally
it's true. It's true.
Possibly completely changing the past and the future, which does lead into Bill and Ted's Face the Music, and we'll get back into that a little bit.
Well, what if Napoleon went back to France and decided, you know what, it'd be great, a water slide park here in Paris, like the
Waterloo,
the Waterloo, like that would have been great, right? All right, so Damien also did. Very impressed with his research here on the 80 Show podcast. He did a deep dive on Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, which honestly, Damien, I have not seen since it came out in the 90s, which, whatever. This is not the 90s podcast, it's the 80s podcast. But, to follow up with Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, you want to watch this. So give us a little synopsis of the Bogus Journey because it ties into the new movie, Face the Music.
Right. And, again, Bill and Ted Face the Music came out 2020. But it ties into the 80s like this does because of the original,
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
I thought I had watched Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. I was sure I had watched it in college or, something like that. When I turned it on, I had definitely never watched this crazy-ass movie.
All right. Tell us about it.
All right. So I just give you... I'm going to try and explain the plot. There's not much of one.
Can't wait. Okay, here we go.
All right. So, a villain from Rufus's time in the future, 2169.
69, dudes!
And so this villain creates android replicas of Bill and Ted.
Of course.
So they're basically robots that look exactly like Bill and Ted.
Sure.
Okay, spoiler alert here. Just in case you haven't watched this incredibly horrible movie from 1991. The androids... The fake Bill and Teds go back in time and they kill Bill and Ted.
Ted, we're dead, dude.
Okay.
So Bill and Ted then turn into ghosts.
Right.
And then Missy, who was originally Bill's stepmom, which is now Ted's stepmom in the second one.
Wait, what? Really?
It's going to be funny because we'll talk about this and also Face the Music. So Missy divorced Bill's dad, then married Ted's dad, and they talk about that in this one. And then Missy is holding a seance with some of her friends.
Of course she is.
And Bill and Ted, as their ghosts, they are trying to get some help, and they figure, hey, let's get some help here. But Missy has some mystical book, and they doesn't realize it's Bill and Ted, and she somehow damns them to hell.
Okay, yeah, makes sense totally. Keep going. I'm following along perfectly.
Yeah, and so it basically goes from time travel to paranormal. It is like it's an insane movie. And so it's like Ghostbusters and Back to the Future had a baby that was on acid. This is the best way to.
You know what? That should have been on their movie poster right there. Like that should have been perfectly on their poster right there.
I'm still trying to figure out how they ended up in hell, because if they were the ones to unite the universe in peace and bring prosperity and peace to a future civilization, why they ended up in hell, it does not make any sense to me. But hey, it's a crazy movie. So they go to hell. I won't spend too much time on that. Of course, they meet Death, who's the Grim Reaper, and I bring that up because he's in Face the Music.
Yes, because he does come up in Face the Music. Because I vaguely remembered Bogus Journey, and then I was like, oh yeah, that guy was in Bogus Journey. That's all I remembered was that. So, oh man, all right.
So Death helps him escape hell, and then to get into heaven, they actually end up quoting Poison's lyrics to "Every Rose Has Its Thorn."
Oh, every rose has its thorn, just like every cowboy sings a sad, sad song, Damien.
And Death ends up joining their band as the bass player, as we see in Face the Music.
Yep.
And then God in heaven hooks them up with a couple of alien troll scientists.
I mean, who? Of course he did.
Yeah, it's bizarre, and these are some crazy looking puppet things. Remember, I sent you a video of that while I was watching it.
Yeah, so we'll get to that in a second. Damien was watching this and sent me some clips from the movie and some text messages. But the other thing I thought was kind of interesting was 70s icon Pam Grier actually shows up in this movie.
Yeah, so she's managing the Battle of the Bands, which is somehow this international battle of crappy amateur bands that's shown, on TV worldwide.
There you go.
And she ends up being Rufus in reality.
So this was the American Idol of 1991 kind of made up, basically. Yeah. Okay.
Just insanity. Which reminds me, of the podcast that we both love. How did this get made?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because we need to know.
I cannot believe they have not covered this. I don't believe they've actually covered Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey on that. Which they really should.
They should, absolutely.
It is one of the worst movies.
We should write them and let them know. I mean, we're in the podcasting. We're like pretty much have the same followers as they do, right?
Yeah, pretty much. About at least 1,000 less than they do.
At least 1,000 less. All right. So I know like you really felt that it was unwatchable.
Yeah. Before I get into that though, let me just talk about how it ends because it does go pretty much directly from Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey to Face the Music, even though there's a time gap in between. So they, at the end of Bogus Journey, they go 16 months in the future. They enhance their musical talent and skills, their singing, their guitars, and all that. And then they come back to win, Battle of the Bands or whatever. But in this future, so they're married to the princesses, right? And they get married to the princesses, which they still are in all. They are basically with them all three.
But they basically kidnapped from.
Yes, they did.
1500s or whatever.
Exactly. They kidnapped these poor women, bring them to the future, and then they ended up having sons with them though in this timeline in Bogus Journey, which is interesting.
Oh, wait a second, because keep going.
Because in Face the Music, they're daughters.
They're daughters, yeah, absolutely.
So I'm not sure what the canon is on that, but. That was the only...
There's no canon, Damien. Like, this is just a crappy money grab. There's no canon, so it doesn't even matter. But go ahead.
It was probably the worst movie I've ever seen. It was unwatchable. I fell asleep 3 times watching this movie, and it's only in 1 hour and 30-minute playtime, right?
Yeah.
I know I'm Mr. Miyagi's age, but I usually don't fall asleep watching movies, man.
All right, so this was funny because Damien was rewatching this to do, research for this podcast because we actually research this stuff, people. Like we're
dedicated.
We're dedicated to this podcast, and so I don't know. So a few weeks ago, he's watching it and he just starts bombing my phone with some text messages, and I don't know if you want to read them. You want me to read them?
You should read them. Just how because you were the one who received them, so you read them how you received them. Yeah.
So I remember I was home. We were doing something else. I'm just laughing my butt off listening to these text messages from Damien. So the first one I get is. Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey is insane. It's like Ghostbusters and Back to the Future had a baby and that was on acid, which he said that earlier. It's on Amazon Prime. Watch it. But get drunk too. and then I think Damien, I don't know. We're not going to talk about use of legal or illegal substances, but you may have been on some, right, Damien?
They were all legal. I mean, we're in California.
Okay.
So yeah.
So he said, it's only a 57-minute runtime. I feel like I've been watching it forever, and I'm only halfway through on the second viewing. Oh, God, wait. It's an hour and 26 minutes long. I have 57 minutes left. I don't have enough alcohol, and I just bought 2 handles of Kettle One. Damien, classic Damien. And then, of course, he sends me a clip, and then he says...
that was a crazy alien troll.
Yeah, that was weird. This movie is insane. I think Bill and Ted are in hell with question mark, exclamation point, question mark, exclamation point. We need to add this as a segment to the podcast. I think I'll be watching a good bit, including reading my text to you as I'm watching it. So, we made that happen, Damien.
Yeah, we did. It was... Definitely, I went back to time to make this happen.
Oh my gosh! And so you're saying it's a winner?
It's definitely a
winner. Okay, so anyway, so let's.
Oh yeah, wait. My last text was Damien's totally not sober. Excellent take on Bill and Ted.
There it is. Yeah, right there. So So anyway, so it's a winner in Damien's book for sure. And I did have to point out to him that it was a 90s movie. And so he was like, why am I watching this anyway? And I was like, well, it continues the story of the first movie. So okay. So let's get to Bill and Ted Face the Music, Damien.
All right, let's talk about Bill and Ted Face the Music. All right, so let's just start with the plot. Again, spoiler alerts if you haven't seen it. But, if you haven't seen it, watch it.
Yeah, it's great. It's fine.
So we jump ahead a few years from Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. I don't really know how many years ahead. I guess
it's like 30 years,
yeah,
I think. Yeah.
They have 2 daughters that are teenagers, so I don't know how that math works,
right.
but it doesn't matter. It's we'll just go with it. So how does it start, Bill?
So basically, they still have not written the song that fulfills their destiny. And so, in fact, now they're like washed up, middle-aged dudes playing open mic nights, and they're completely struggling, right?
Yeah, I think because Rufus biffed the past.
Yes.
So your song hasn't been created yet.
Don't blame George Carlin, R.I.P., man. So reality is starting to collapse because they still haven't delivered that song that's supposed to unite the world. And actually, I feel like we need that song today, Damien. Like it would be great if we had a song that, united the whole world. Time and space are breaking apart. Historical figures, random people and places are disappearing or appearing in the wrong era. And talk about, Rufus's daughter, Kelly, shows up in the phone booth to warn them.
Actually, it's not a phone booth; it's like an egg. We see the phone booth.
Oh,
later.
That's right.
We do see the phone booth later. They give a
yeah. That's right. And they must write that song now, immediately, or everything's going to fall apart. Right.
Right. And so we're also introduced to Bill and Ted's daughters, right?
Yeah.
So again, the princesses are still there, and they have 2 daughters. And a couple of funny things there is Bill's daughter is named Thea after Ted.
Sure.
And then Ted's daughter's named Billy after Bill. So I think that's pretty
very original. Yeah, it's perfect. It's perfect for those characters, actually.
And just a couple interesting facts. So the actress who played Bill's daughter, Thea, she's in real life the niece of Hugo Weaving, who played the agent in The Matrix, which also Keanu Reeves was in.
There you go. A little full circle moment right there, right?
Yeah. And then the daughter who played Billy, I looked her up on IMDb, and her name is Jack, and she's listed as something called non-binary. She must be a computer geek. I don't really know what that is.
There you go. All right. So they are. So the daughters are trying to help their dads, right? And so they do a little time travel, right? In the movie, trying to make a super band made up of all of the world's greatest musicians, Jimi Hendrix, Louis Armstrong, Mozart, and even there was a prehistoric drummer in there, right?
Yeah, it was kind of strange. And so they went into the past, of course, and then Bill and Ted go into the future.
Right, so Bill and Ted go in the future. This is a dual plot point, I guess. There's two things going on at the same time. And they jump forward, and every single time they find themselves as worse and more pathetic versions of themselves, right?
Yeah, and they're pretty funny, actually.
Yeah, it is pretty funny. They're alcoholics. They're prison inmates that are super buff. They're just, and there's some that's just total losers.
My favorite part is when they go to 2030 and they see themselves in prison, and they're just absolutely jacked and buff and have tattoos everywhere.
That's great.
It is funny. That is actually one of the funniest parts of the movie.
Absolutely. So anyway, are we going to spoil the ending of this movie, Damien, or we just want our listeners to watch this movie?
I'm going to leave that one up to you, Bill.
Okay. So, I'll just sum it up this way. There's a killer robot who becomes lovable. They're trying to eliminate them. Of course, Bill and Ted end up in hell again because, why not? We'll just throw that in there, right? Bogus Journey, end up in hell. And they reunite with their old friend Death.
Who's the bass player.
And apparently they kicked him out of the band. So
yeah, he did a solo career.
He's a little pissed about that.
Have you come to sue me again? No, Death. Not at all. We just need to talk to you, Death. Talk to the hand.
But really, at the end of the day, it's about the message of Bill and Ted's, which is it's not just them that are saving the universe. It's their families, their friends. It's everybody coming together.
Which is a beautiful message. But again, Rufus messed everything up because without Rufus, the future would have happened because in his future, it was perfect.
There you go.
Then now Rufus's daughter had to go back and change everything too. Just one other quick thing is as we see in the beginning, I forgot to mention this. Missy, again, in the original one, Missy was married
the
to
stepmom.
Yeah, was Bill's stepmom. Then she became Ted's stepmom.
Right.
And then the third one, she marries Ted's younger brother.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It's pretty funny.
It's great. It's great that Missy is in all three of the movies. So anyway, so yeah, it's a message of that they're giving the song to everyone to unite the world. It's not about them. It's about everyone in the world. Right, Damien?
Yeah, it's an absolutely beautiful message. And during COVID especially, I think that was a great message. And, the timeline was, you talked about earlier, was off kilter, right? I mean, we had these historical figures zapping in and out of things. And, during COVID, everything did feel off kilter. It's
true.
Like weird.
It's very
the timeline was off. Everything felt weird. And so it was kind of a reassuring movie to watch, and it felt good. I will say it's obviously a sci-fi movie. No, this is real.
Wait, what?
They got some of the science wrong. Besides the time travel, they did better with the time travel of this than the other ones. But in one part they're using a globe, right? So they got that messed up. I mean, round earthers. Come on, these round earthers.
It's sci-fi because there's round earthers. Oh gosh,
we all know the world is flat.
Okay, all right. Damien.
Even in the future, that doesn't change.
All right, Damien. So your final thoughts on the movie?
Overall, I loved it. I thought it was a great sequel. I loved having the original cast as far as Bill and Ted and the original writers, and it did keep with the theme of the first two movies, and it did kind of pick up where Bogus Journey left off, but it was so much better than Bogus Journey.
Oh yeah. Well, I don't remember. You recently sat through that, but yeah, I agree with this movie. With your take on the movie, it's about two dudes just trying to do the right thing, and we can all relate to that, right?
Absolutely.
All right, so we recommend it. 2 thumbs up from these guys. So do yourself a favor and take a watch of it.
For our next segment, we're going to be talking about the top 5 sitcom moms from the 1980s.
Yeah, so I mean, there's so many memorable sitcom moms from the 1980s. I mean, we did our last episode. We talked about the top 5 sitcom dads. So we figure might as well talk about not might as well. Come on, Damien, that's a little bit rude, right? We need to honor the top 5 sitcom moms of the 1980s, right?
Especially with Mother's Day just around the corner.
There you go. So I think Mother's Day is always just around the corner, no matter when you're listening to the A Show podcast, right?
Yeah. That's right. Well, this is evergreen, timeless.
Yeah,
show. Yeah.
It's evergreen. So anyway, so first of all, we're gonna give an honorable mention because this one didn't make the top 10 or the top 5, excuse me, because I don't know, she wasn't a real mom, but Mrs. Garrett, Mrs. G.
Oh, I love that one.
Yeah,
she was a mother figure for many kids.
So she was from Facts of Life, but of course we know that she started as a mother figure on Different Strokes.
I called her mom, in fact.
Yeah. If I saw her today, I'd call her mom. I actually don't know if she's still alive, so that's terrible. But anyway, so she's kind of like the mentor mom. She raised a bunch of teenage girls, and Damien, I know you don't spend a lot of time around teenage girls.
I try not to.
It's probably good idea, but good Lord, that's got to be extremely hard to raise but teenage girls, and she did it with kindness and some tough love. Yeah,
there were a handful. Like Blair, I mean, she was an entitled, stuck up, snob. I mean, there was a handful of kids there, and Joe was questioning her identity. There's so many things going on in that show.
There you go. But she always had wisdom, but she knew when to drop the hammer on the girls, right? So anyway, okay. So who do you got for number 5?
All right, number 5. I'm going to come in with Louise Jefferson.
Wait, who?
Louise Jefferson from the Jeffersons.
Oh, Oh, Wheezy. Is that what you're talking about? Okay.
Better
Okay.
known as Wheezy.
Okay. Did not know her real name was Louise. All right, Damien. Go for it.
You know, she was a classy badass, right? I mean, she was just always there for her family.
Mom, you're not going to put that thermometer in my mouth. Well, you've got one other choice.
The show actually started in the 70s, but it went all the way through mid-80s, believe it or not. I had to look that up. I always thought it was more of a 70s show, but it was
like late 70s, early 80s, right?
Yeah, it actually went through 75 to 85, so it was split in the middle there. She was elegant, she was smart, and she could go toe-to-toe with George's nonsense.
Yeah, that's right. That's true. Yeah, so that's funny. It's hilarious that I did not know her real name was Louise. I was like, who are you talking about?
And that show really broke some stereotypes. And
absolutely.
Yeah, I think it was a great show, and she was a great character for that. So
absolutely.
I think she definitely earned a number 5 spot.
All right, so coming in at number 4 is Angela Bauer from the show, Damien?
One of my favorite shows, and Who's the Boss?
Who's the Boss, right?
And I had a huge crush on Alyssa Milano. I still do, actually.
Who didn't have a huge crush on Alyssa Milano in the 1980s, right? So anyway, so she was like this career woman. She was a trailblazer back in the 80s. She was the CEO of her own ad agency. And really, Damien, she broke the traditional gender roles and balanced being a boss at work and a boss at home, which was the whole title of the show, Who's the Boss, right?
And speaking of the title, I think you can make a case for Tony Danza being the mom in the show.
That's terrible, but true. All right, so who do you have at number 4, Damien?
All right, I'm coming in with one of our favorite shows. We talk about this on 80 Show Podcast a lot, Family Ties.
Okay.
So Elise Keaton.
Yeah, there you go.
And she was a really cool activist mom. You know, she still had that kind of hippie 60s vibe to her, like her husband too. But, she stood up for her beliefs, and she gracefully managed her son, Alex P. Keaton, and his right-wing conservative views, his Reagan era, and his preppy dressing as well.
Absolutely. And, he basically, worshipped Ronald Reagan, but she was a total hippie against that, and she was still a great mom in that show.
And she was really sweet about how she approached, her parenting skills, and especially with Alex, and, she tolerated some of his nonsense and just kind of tried to guide him and lead him to the right direction.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. It would be difficult to be a mom or a parent who had a child that was like totally the anti, believed everything against what you believed, right?
Yeah, good thing we don't face that in today's day and age.
Yeah, I'm sure. All right, so number 2 on the list, I think, is Sophia from the Golden Girls. So
That's interesting pick. Okay.
Her actual last name is Petrillo. And so she had that savage grandma energy, Damien, right? Sophia did, right? And so, she always had a quick wit, zero filter. She was tough as nails, and she was always resourceful. And I believe that Estelle Getty, who played her, was actually younger than the actual Golden Girls, Betty White and B. Arthur and all that. So
yeah, I believe they aged her up on that show.
Yeah. So she had that energy, and she even her own daughter, who was an old lady, because that's the whole idea of the show, was scared of her. Right? It was scared because she'd always burn you with some like quick comebacks and stuff like that.
I, Sophia Petrillo, being of sound mind and body, do hereby leave my daughter, Dorothy Zbornak, nothing.
Yeah, I think she could even make her top grandmas as well. I mean, she's obviously a mother, but,
Yeah, true.
So I say why you put her on the list and why she earned the number 2 spot. All right, so now we're at number 1.
Number 1.
Drum roll, please.
There we go.
Claire Huxtable from The Cosby Show.
Absolutely.
I mean, she definitely earned just queen mother status.
Absolutely.
I mean, so not only was she a mother, she was a successful career woman. She was a lawyer. She was also no nonsense with the kids. She didn't take any of their crap, right? I mean, that's the whole lawyer side of her. But she was also funny, right? She had a good sense of humor. Yeah. She didn't raise her voice. Again, another handful with kids and neighborhood kids, and Rufy, her husband. So try no.
Dr. Huxtable.
You never,
Dr. Huxtable.
Do you notice she never drank anything that he prepared? Never drank one of his mixed drinks. That should have told us that.
Oh, wow. It's true, but yes. Okay. All right. Go ahead.
But you know what? She could just dismantle anyone with a smile and just a monologue and just a great mom. I mean, I love that show.
Yeah. I mean, it's sad in the sense of who Bill Cosby is now. That show is, there's so many good life lessons from that show, and great, strong parenting roles were portrayed by both, Bill Cosby and
the biggest life lesson, Bill, is you shouldn't have had that drink I made for you earlier.
Oh gosh! All right, so those are our top 5.
Wait, I've got one more.
All right.
Well, I'm just going to...
Wait, we had 5, though, Damien.
I'm going to go on a limb here and say the ultimate TV parent was the TV itself.
You know what, Damien? I concur. Yes. So we've talked about this before on the 80 Show podcast, that the TV was the ultimate babysitter. It was the ultimate parent. Just sat down in your chair and watched that and like, oh, I wish Claire Huxtable was my mom, or Elise Keaton, or Angela Bauer, right? You just sat there.
Or even Bill Cosby. Jesus Christ.
Or Wheezy, right? I wish Wheezy was my parent. But yeah, I agree. The in the 1980s, if you grew up like Damien and I did, the ultimate TV parent was TV itself.
Yep. When we got home, it was always there. It was always on, even if we were by ourselves.
Sadly, it was our best friend. It was our mentor. It was everything for us, right?
God bless the 80s.
God bless the 80s. All right, Damien. So today we're going to throw it way back to one of the most advanced toys of the 1980s, the Texas Instruments Speak and Spell.
All right, Bill. So you mentioned this contraption before, but I got to be honest, I always pictured it as a calculator that yells at you.
Well, it's really not far off. The Speak and Spell was like a cross between like an Etch-a-Sketch and a Fisher-Price cash register, but it had a little bit of attitude. And so if you remember it, it was like bright orange. It had a built-in handle, and it kind of sounded like a robot who failed charm school.
W, X, Y, Z.
That is like if HAL 9000 from 2001 Space Odyssey decided to become a substitute English teacher.
Yeah, exactly. So and the crazy thing was, it was revolutionary at the time. So it was released by Texas Instruments in 1978, and it was the first consumer device to use a speech synthesizer chip. It didn't play back recordings. It actually generated words, kind of like AI, but kind of, stuck on spelling tests.
Wow, that's really advanced tech for the 80s, Bill.
Yeah, so it worked, and it had like games like Mystery Word would give you blanks and clues, and you had to guess the word. It was kind of like playing Hangman, but like, with a judgmental toaster.
So did you ever try and make it say curse words? I feel like, if I had one as a kid, I'd try to get it to say something inappropriate.
So you and every other kid in America did that. And, I might have like looked up the alternate word for donkey, just to see if it would say it. And we try to trick it into swearing, but it really was the original voice-based chaos machine.
It was definitely better than the Texas Instruments calculator. Like, remember you'd spell, or you put an 808 and you turn it upside down and like spell boobs, or 808 spell whatever it was.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's definitely a bit better than that. So, did this Speak and Spell, did it actually catch on? Or was it one of those, parents loved it, the kids hated it kind of things?
Actually, it really did catch on. And it was a big hit in the 80s. And it, of course, it made a cameo in E.T., the Extraterrestrial. So E.T. uses it as a communicator to his... or her, we never know that if E.T. was a boy or a girl. But anyway, to reach back home, and that was Speak and Spell at the heart of that janky, alien radio.
That's right. I should know that. We just talked about you pitch an E.T. sequel.
Absolutely.
And, I've seen that movie a million times. So E.T. phoned home with a spelling test?
Yeah, absolutely. And E.T. was like, I'll be right here. But first spell, intergalactic.
That reminds me of the Beastie Boys, intergalactic, planetary, another dimension. Yep. Well, now, don't tell me to smile. You stick around. I'll make it worth your while. Got numbers beyond what you can dial.
Oh, there you go.
So I'm wondering if, E.T. and Speak and Spell was the inspiration for this Beastie Boys song.
It might be.
All right. I'm obsessed with this thing now. How much did it cost back in the 80s?
Yeah, so it retailed for about $50 to $60, which is that's about $150 today, which means parents paid a small fortune for a toy that corrected their kids, but of course in monotone.
So did it tell you the difference between your and your?
Exactly.
So that really is an expensive way to get toasted by a robot, though.
Yeah, true. But, it kicked off a whole series. There was a speak and read, speak and math, basically every childhood insecurity voiced by a small machine, right?
I love being judged by machines. All right. So what happened to Speak and Spell? What did it evolve into? Was it like a series Awkward Cousin or something?
Well, not quite, but it faded out in the early 90s, but it lives on in collector circles, like retro tech museums, nostalgia-fueled YouTube videos, and it actually pops up in synthwave music videos or music now and then.
Honestly, I kind of want one now. I think I'm going to hit eBay after we get off of this recording.
Yeah.
It might finally teach me how to spell accommodate without Googling it first.
There you go. So it's never too late to be schooled by a tiny robot.
Rude.
There you go. So that's the Speak and Spell charm. That's your retro lesson of the week. Remember, in the 1980s, even spelling Homer came with an attitude.
And a creepy robot voice that you'll never forget.
All right, Damien. So that's it for this episode of the 80s Show podcast. And oh no, we've got the fax machine rolling in.
All right, let me check it out and see what it says. I'm a little worried that these never look good to us.
They're never good, Damien.
All right, apparently what the fax is saying is that the Commodore 64 is apparently not a computer that's still made anymore.
What?
That nobody uses these anymore.
Okay, well, you guys out there, if you want to, support a podcast, if you have a company that wants to support a podcast about the 1980s, you can always hit us up. But anyway, Damien,
I'm starting to think that we might need to hire a new ad executive. I'm thinking maybe hiring my brother-in-law was a bad idea.
Yeah, probably not good. Not good.
He did work for Enron, so he has some legit, executive experience. We're gonna have to start looking into this, though, Bill.
Yeah, absolutely. So Damien, what's gonna be on tap for next episode?
All right, for the next episode, we have Cocaine Drives the 80s.
Oh yeah.
So the first segment we're going to be talking about is DeLorean Motor Corporation.
Awesome, and I can't wait for that. And we're also going to be talking about our favorite 1980s action movies.
That's going to be a tough choice. There's some great action movies.
Yeah, absolutely.
And finally, we'll be talking about one of my favorite TV shows in the 80s, Miami Vice.
Absolutely. So, of course, you can follow us on the Twitter and Facebook, Instagram, all that kind of stuff. Please rate us on iTunes and Google Play, Stitcher, wherever you can find your podcast. And for the 80 Show podcast, my name is Bill Lassiter. Be excellent to each other.
Party on, dudes. Theme song composed by my good friend, fellow rock star, straight out of Bakersfield. You may also know him from the band Videodrone, Mark Russell Davis.